Sorry. I forgot my wallet again, so could you please pay for me? When my niece's school went on a long break, it naturally became a habit for my sister-in-law and her daughter to come and stay at our house. My sister-in-law is a single mother, and at first, I was sympathetic to her situation as a single parent and thought we should help out where we could. However, over time, she began to take it for granted, and once, when she insisted on going to a new outlet mall nearby, I reluctantly agreed. There, she declared she had forgotten her wallet and demanded that I pay. It was infuriating to cater to my sister-in-law's whims, but I didn't want to upset my niece, who was nothing like her mother and a genuinely sweet girl. Knowing that my niece often had to go without because of their situation, I didn't want to disappoint her. So, with the insistence that my sister-in-law repay me, I covered the cost. But that wasn't the end of it. On another day, my sister-in-law demanded to go to the outlet mall again. This time, I was determined not to let my sister-in-law have her way. I had a plan in mind. My husband and I are a couple in our 30s. We've been married for 5 years but don't have children yet. We've discussed the possibility of infertility and decided to just let things happen naturally. Our parents, both mine and my husband's, never blamed us for not having children. They understood that every couple is different and that it's okay not to have children. Their understanding has been a great comfort to us. Still in my 30s. We're not giving up on having children, but thinking of planning our future life with the possibility of living without children in mind soon. I have a younger brother who is still single but has a serious girlfriend. He once joked about having lots of kids for my share and asking for my help with them, whether he knew about my fertility issues or not. My husband has an older sister, who is the sister-in-law in this story. She's a single mother, having divorced and lived with her young daughter. Her ex-husband left the house and furnishings to her when they separated. It had become a ritual for her to visit us during her daughter's long school vacations, claiming financial hardship as a single parent. I once suggested she could take her daughter to a hotel and explore different places. But she always ended the conversation with how hard it is financially. It would be too sad if my daughter was the only one not able to go anywhere. Every year in her diary, she writes about the wonderful summer memories at her kind aunt's house. You don't mind, do you? Indeed, my niece is adorable. She quickly warmed up to both me and my husband and is a very well-behaved child. I remember crying during summer vacations in elementary school when I couldn't go anywhere and had nothing to write in my diary. So, I decided it was okay to indulge her while she was still in elementary school. But this year, my niece started middle school. I remembered how expenses started to add up at that age, with kids spending on stationery, magazines, and fashion. Despite not wanting to meddle in my sister-in-law's household affairs, my husband and I decided to give a generous middle school entrance gift. We were touched by the thoughtful thank you letter we received. As the early summer approached, my husband informed me that he wouldn't be able to take time off this summer due to work. We're just a couple, so we plan to enjoy our vacations at different times. However, the day after Marine Day, my sister-in-law and niece arrived unannounced. We're here for a month, just like every year. Huh? I reminded that we had agreed last summer to end these long stays, right? I retorted, but my sister-in-law said, I'll just stay in the room I've used every year, she said as she sauntered into the room. Even when my niece was a little hesitant, my sister-in-law urged her to hurry up and bring their luggage. She hurried my niece, who apologized to me before following her mother. By the way, I heard there's a new outlet mall nearby. How about taking us there? We could have lunch there today. She made herself at home, controlling the air conditioner and changing the settings. It's great not having to worry about saving electricity, she exclaimed, drinking a beer my husband had chilled. Frustrated, I called my husband, who was surprised by their visit and couldn't leave work. It was difficult to get out of work, so he promised to talk to her when he got home. But he might have to work late. Please handle my sister for now, he said before hanging up. I was troubled by her unexpected visit, but I couldn't ask him to leave work early. I had no choice. It was better to take my sister-in-law to the outlet mall she wanted to visit than to have her lounging around the house. My niece seemed interested in the outlet mall too, nodding along with her mother's conversation. I couldn't bring myself to even tell her to endure it. I think I could have said it if she were my own niece, but it's hard to be strict with my husband's relatives when he's not around. Plus, with the unexpected guests, I wasn't prepared for lunch, so I reluctantly decided to take them to the outlet mall. Although it's nearby, it's a bit too far to walk. It's not impossible, but my sister-in-law complained about not wanting to walk in the heat, so we used a bus to get to the nearest station and then a direct bus from there. My sister-in-law grumbled about not using the car, but I explained it was impossible since my husband had taken it to work, and she begrudgingly understood. Even getting this far felt like a hassle, but as soon as we arrived at the outlet mall, my sister-in-law started making a fuss about forgetting her wallet.
How can you forget your wallet when we're going shopping?
I usually put my credit card in my phone case, but it seems I accidentally put it back in my wallet when I topped up my transportation card. Her explanation didn't make much sense. When we got on the bus, she used her phone, presumably with a mobile version of the transportation card. If she topped it up with cash, what does the credit card have to do with it? If it's auto-topped up, she wouldn't need to touch the credit card in the first place. While I was trying to make sense of her story, my niece looked a bit disappointed. But it was only for a moment, and my niece soon smiled. "I'm happy just looking around, Mom." Her words pierced my heart. I felt sorry for her, having to accommodate the adults. If my sister-in-law were reasonable, I wouldn't mind covering for her, but I was a bit suspicious if she truly forgot her wallet. If she has a credit card, there should also be a cash advance facility. She could try to escape the situation by claiming she had no cash or bank balance, but in the worst case, she could pay with a cash advance. So, I told my niece, since we're here, let me cover today's shopping. Middle schoolers' shopping wouldn't amount to much, maybe around $200. Including lunch for 3, it shouldn't exceed $400. I thought I could manage with the cash I had, so I suggested it. However, the person who was most delighted by my offer was my sister-in-law. She started eyeing expensive summer clothes, bags, and shoes from famous brands. I couldn't just cover my niece's shopping, and I ended up playing the role of my sister-in-law's wallet. I didn't have enough cash, so I had to use my credit card. It turned out to be quite a sum, so I demanded repayment from my sister-in-law as soon as we got home. "Sorry. I can't right now. I don't have any cash on me, and I forgot my bank card."
"But you can use your credit card's cash advance, right?"
"My credit card's expired. I must have mixed it up with a new one." "Is that even possible? Don't you usually dispose of the old card when you put the new one in your wallet?" I couldn't believe it and pressed her for proof. Indeed, the card had expired 3 months ago. She explained, "I panicked and switched wallets when my old one broke, so I must have made a mistake then." She also didn't want her in-laws to know she was struggling financially, so she asked me to keep quiet. She continued, "I've already troubled them with the divorce. They'd worry if they knew about this." I couldn't be too harsh with her, partly because she promised to repay me as soon as we got back to her house. That summer, my sister-in-law stayed with us for about a month. My niece helped with the housework and showed interest in cooking, saying she wanted to learn. She grew even more attached to me. But my sister-in-law acted like a mother-in-law. "Hey, isn't lunch ready yet? And why are we saving on the air conditioning? You have a washer-dryer, why not use that to dry clothes?" My sister-in-law never helped with housework and had no qualms about complaining twice as much as anyone else. If it were just my husband and me, we'd do laundry every other day, and housework wouldn't take long. But now, with my sister-in-law and niece here, I have to do laundry for 4 people every day. As soon as I mentioned the no air conditioning rule during morning chores, the complaints tripled.
"If you want the windows closed and the air conditioning on, you could at least help hang the laundry,"
I said to my sister-in-law. But instead of helping, she replied, "You're young, so it's okay for you, but I can't be in the sun anymore. My skin gets affected by UV rays. You know, being a single parent means I have to skimp on sunscreen. If you want my help, you'll have to buy me some." Demanding an expensive brand that cost several $1,000s. Why am I even hanging her laundry? I was so frustrated that I took it out on her clothes, shaking them out excessively before hanging them. After a month of this, my sister-in-law finally took my niece and left. The day after they left, I contacted her about repaying the money she owed, but she refused, saying, "I can't before payday." I wondered how she made a living after lounging at my house for a month. Despite my persistent demands for repayment, she kept dodging with various excuses. Finally, I sent a certified letter to my sister-in-law as proof that I had asked for repayment. A few days later, my niece called. She had accidentally seen the letter and learned that her mother hadn't repaid the money she borrowed from me. According to my niece, Her mother had been receiving financial support from her ex-in-laws since the divorce. They had never seemed to struggle financially before, and there should have been enough leeway to repay the borrowed money. The support from her ex-in-laws was usually paid around the first of every month. So my niece promised to take responsibility and repay me from that money. She also confided in me that she was worried about her mother's increasingly sloppy lifestyle. It was sad to hear my niece, who is still at an age where she can rely on her parents, talk about her mother with embarrassment. Seeing my niece in such a responsible situation made me feel even angrier at my carefree sister-in-law. With my niece approaching high school and college, expenses will only increase. And yet, her mother is living irresponsibly. What kind of parenting is that? I felt a strong desire to teach my sister-in-law a lesson, especially with all the resentment I had built up. I came up with a plan to discipline her. I'm not sure if it's depending on schools, my niece's school on a semester system. The spring semester runs from February to June. Before the semester starts, there is a short break. During this break, my sister-in-law and niece came to stay at our house again. As soon as she arrived, my sister-in-law immediately demanded to be taken to the outlet mall. It suddenly got cold, and I need to buy winter clothes, or I'll freeze to death, she exaggerated, so I agreed to take her. Upon arrival, my sister-in-law was even more excited than my niece. I told her, I'll look after my niece today, so feel free to shop as much as you like. My sister-in-law left briskly without a word of thanks. I hoped she would pay for her shopping. But I was ready to take action if she tried to use me as her wallet again. Considering this possibility, I had contacted some allies in advance. About 2 hours later, I got a call from my sister-in-law. Sorry. I think I forgot my wallet again. I can't find it anywhere. I'm sure it's in my big bag back home. I'll definitely pay you back when we return, so can you cover the cost for now? That was the gist of her call. Half of me thought, typical, and the other half was exasperated. I told her that my niece wasn't feeling well and we had already gone home. What? Why did you go home without my permission? Don't just take my daughter away. Actually, just leave her there and come back to pay. I was infuriated by her carelessness about her own daughter. All she had to do was admit she didn't have enough money and return the items. Why did I have to pay for her shopping? Nonetheless, I needed to follow through with my plan, so I told her I'd be back as soon as I dropped my niece off at home. She asked, how soon is soon? I told her I had just reached a bus stop near our house and it would be another hour using public transportation. I expected her to demand a taxi, but surprisingly, she accepted this. I realized she was up to no good when she easily agreed to wait for an hour. She probably didn't want to risk me not coming back if she complained too much. An hour later, I arrived at the designated store with my collaborators. My sister-in-law was there, arms full of clothes and bags, instructing the staff to add more items. It seemed she planned to shop even more while waiting for me to return. When I called out, sorry to keep you waiting, she was surprised to see familiar faces other than mine. Beside me stood my husband, who was supposed to be at work. Then, my father-in-law appeared, changing my sister-in-law's expression from surprise to confusion. She stammered, asking why my husband was there. In truth, I had informed him about her not repaying the money and he was aware of everything that had happened. He agreed with my plan. He was actually at home on a day off, hiding in the bedroom when my sister-in-law arrived. I had followed our plan and told her he was at work, and she believed me without checking. After hearing the story from my niece, my husband agreed we should tell his parents. We reported everything, including her long stay and refusal to repay the money. When I explained our plan for today to my in-laws, they were furious, saying, if that's true, it's outrageous. After separating from my sister-in-law at the mall, I immediately contacted them. My husband had driven ahead and waited for us. My niece and I left my sister-in-law and went to the parking lot, where my husband was waiting to drive us to a hotel to meet my in-laws. They had planned to go on a short trip to a rural area, but they prioritized our situation over their trip and waited at the hotel. I felt bad that their trip was ruined, but they insisted on dealing with my sister-in-law's antics first. As planned, we left my niece with my mother-in-law at the hotel and returned to the outlet mall. When we confronted her, my sister-in-law furiously accused me of being cheeky for someone who was just a wallet to her. But my husband and father-in-law took away all the clothes and bags she was holding. What are you doing? Don't return my clothes.
They're not yours if you're not paying for them.
My husband retorted, and my sister-in-law was hesitating for a moment. My father-in-law returned the items to the store staff and my husband dragged her out. As he pulled her arm, she screamed.
It hurts. Let me go. Someone help, he's attacking me.
Realizing she couldn't overpower him, she started accusing my husband of being a villain. My father-in-law, who had returned from explaining to the store, pulled out something from his jacket pocket. He was actually a police officer. I just happened to witness the incident, he explained, and everyone around us stopped listening to my sister-in-law's complaints. They pushed her into my husband's car parked in the lot. After reporting her actions to my in-laws, my father-in-law immediately checked her bank account. My niece knew where the passbook was, so they checked at my sister-in-law's house while she was away. The in-laws had been providing her with a monthly stipend, believing her claim of wanting to save the divorce settlement money for my niece's future. However, the entire amount was withdrawn on the day it was deposited, leaving a zero balance. The account in my niece's name, supposed to contain the divorce settlement, was almost empty. My sister-in-law didn't receive alimony due to her fault in the divorce. She also withdrew the child support from her ex-husband immediately after it was deposited. Furthermore, she confessed to not working, despite telling her parents she was. She spent her days leisurely, using the support money and child support. The divorce settlement money she claimed to save for my niece was spent on her lifestyle. When it ran out, she planned to make me buy designer goods and sell them for cash. She even boasted about how well new, tagged outlet items sold. My father-in-law hung his head in shame and apologized to us. I hadn't yet disclosed something to my in-laws, despite feeling sorry for my father-in-law. I showed them a video, saying, "We got evidence." It captured my sister-in-law red-handed. Whenever she and her daughter stayed with us, my husband's and my belongings mysteriously disappeared. It was too coincidental to happen every time, and more items vanished with each visit. Without proof, I couldn't accuse her, but I kept an eye on her after she didn't repay the money I had fronted. I couldn't watch her all the time, so I installed hidden cameras in our rooms. Multiple times during her stay, she seemed to be searching our room when I was out. Finally, she began to blatantly steal just before leaving. There were times when she had checked the location many times, and she would go straight to his destination and steal what she was looking for with practiced skill. She knew exactly where to go, swiftly taking specific items like my jewelry and my husband's luxury watch. The cameras caught her in the act, even capturing her face as she didn't notice them. My father-in-law, a police officer, was visibly furious, saying, "It's shameful to have a criminal in the family." He was overwhelmed with anger and sadness. When confronted, my sister-in-law brazenly claimed she had already sold the stolen items. My father-in-law instructed us to file a police report and submit the video as evidence.
You can't turn in your own family, right? It's not a crime among families, right? We don't count someone who exploits kindness and repays generosity with evil as family.
As my husband started the car engine, my sister-in-law asked, "Where are you taking me?" My father-in-law answered, "To the police, obviously." She screamed as if it was the end of the world, begging us for mercy. She tried to destroy my phone, claiming it would erase the evidence, but I informed her it was just a copy and the original was safe at home. She resigned to silence when she realized she had no escape. She pleaded, "I'll repay the money, just don't take me to the police." It's not just a matter of getting your money back. The stolen items had sentimental value. It wasn't just about the money. My jewelry I bought with my first salary. And gifts from my husband, and heirlooms from my late grandmother. The same went for my husband's luxury watch. But we worried about what would happen to my niece if her mother became a criminal. We thought my in-laws would take care of her, but it would hurt her to know her mother was a thief. So, for my niece's sake, we proposed not to file a report if she kept her promise to repay us. My father-in-law agreed to ensure she kept this promise. She had to repay a set amount each month, earned through her own labor. If she failed, we would immediately file a report. I told him that I had recorded the entire conversation. I recorded the entire agreement, as suggested by my father-in-law, for evidence. My sister-in-law had no way to deny or forget what was said. She had no choice but to hang her head in the face of the reality that I don't know. I didn't say it. I forgot. Was no longer valid. Later, she was taken back to her parents' house by my father-in-law. We received an apology from my in-laws later. They admitted they had been too lenient due to their love for their granddaughter and their daughter's manipulations. They realized they had spoiled her too much and vowed to re-educate her strictly. My sister-in-law had always been pampered and thought it was her due. After getting engaged, she quit her job to become a housewife. Even though it was difficult to get a job again after the divorce, my sister-in-law herself confessed that she thought she was only working part-time, but in reality she wasn't working at all. After her divorce, she didn't even attempt to work, saying she didn't want to be associated with unfashionable older women. My father-in-law, knowing she was too sheltered, arranged for her to work at a company owned by his acquaintance. The owner was strict but fair. She struggled with basic manners and language. And her salary was managed by my mother-in-law, used to repay us. My sister-in-law and her daughter moved out of the house left by her ex-husband and now live under strict supervision with her parents. My niece is becoming a more responsible person, helping her grandparents. She plans to stay with them during the winter break but looks forward to visiting us during the spring break. My husband and I are excited for her next visit. As for my sister-in-law, regardless of any change in her, she is not welcome in our house. We both agree it's best to avoid unpleasant feelings.